I'm probably a little bit unique in that I work with a franchise organization. So my team doesn't do any of the recruiting. We kind of manage the brand at a high level. I've been in talent acquisition or HR related field for about 14 years now. I started in a merchandising position at Target Corporation, actually, which is based here in Minneapolis. And I got tapped on the shoulder to go do some campus recruiting for that position that I had been managing. And it was intended to be a one-year stint. I was supposed to go back to merchandising, and I loved what I was doing so much that 14 years later, I'm still in the industry, and I essentially forgot to go back. In the later years, especially with Best Buy, I began to really get an understanding and having a realization that the strategy couldn't exist without all of these new components that seemed to be coming, which was the recruitment marketing aspects. And I don't think anyone even knew to call it that at the time. Enter Great Clips, where I was pretty much given a blank slate to say, we don't really have a recruiting function today. What would you do? And I got to just build it with a recruiting marketing mindset from the beginning. I think there still needs to be a larger connection between the consumer brand that a company has and the employer brand that company has. The marketing teams aren't necessarily thinking about it in that way. And so it's a huge mindset to change. It's almost like trying to move a big ship with a small rudder. But once they start to see it, it starts to dawn on them. And even things like, let me just give you an example. When our consumer marketing team starts building commercials for our salons, they're not thinking about that the fact that the stylist is wearing an apron in the commercial actually gives an impression to a stylist who may or may not like to wear an apron, may want to dress the way that they want to dress, or it might actually give them the impression that we do more chemical treatments at Great Clips because that's what aprons are used for, which in reality, we do haircuts. So they're thinking of it, oh, we put this apron on so that we can make sure that the customer knows who the stylist is and who the customer is in the chair. And we're saying, that actually has an impact on employer branding and perceptions that people form of Great Clips as an employer. And so we just start to talk about it, and these light bulbs go off, and then they start saying, oh, maybe we should be consulting you about customer branding, which is really interesting because it's kind of the reverse now. They're coming to us and saying, hey, can you make sure these haircuts look good because we know that's going to affect your employer brand. It's like, yeah, let's be more connected on these things. So I think there just needs to be that partnership and connection, both directions, not just one. How did you do it, and who did you use, and what were your resources, and how many vendors did you have, and things like that. And I try to make it as simple as possible, and I recommend just a really linear approach. And it's just a couple of steps, and I always put at the very beginning is just making sure you know what your employee brand is, and if you don't, just go ask. Do a focus group or whatever it is, find out why people like working for your company and establish that, find out what your employee value proposition is. Then once you have your employer brand, then you just got to find your audience and find your content and start to then get that content to the audience in the way that the audience wants it. And once you start to do that, then you've started recruitment marketing, whether you know it or not.